Welcome to the Athletic FC podcast with me, Ayo Akinwolere. England are off to the World Cup, and typically it's thanks to their captain, Harry Kane. So how important is he to their chances next summer? All right, in with us today we have Charlie Eccleshare, who covered Kane's time at Spurs for the Athletic. Good to have you with us, Charlie.
Hello, how are you doing?
Yeah, really good. And also our German football writer, Seb, Stafford-Bloor as well. Seb, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Ayo.
All right, we'll also be joined later on by former England goalkeeper Rob Green, who spoke about Kane's incredible finishing.
He is the best I've seen in certain areas, on an angle, within the V of the pitch, really coming out from the goal. If he's in that area, he's the best I've seen at just finding the corner consistently.
But first, Charlie, England are heading to the World Cup. How much do England's hope lie on Harry Kane being fit?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at this because he was subbed off in all of the knockout games at the Euros, and obviously a part of that was because I guess he wasn't completely healthy. So yeah, I mean, if he can go there and be in tip-top shape, hopefully Bayern have the Bundesliga 1 in March or something like that. Sorry, Seb, that wouldn't be a great story to write about, but for our purposes, that would be quite useful. He can kind of feel reasonably well rested. Yeah, I mean, he's clearly still the guy around who the rest of the team kind of looks to for inspiration and kind of orients around. And yeah, just another kind of classically efficient performance from him last night.
Seb, I was looking into Harry Kane and, I mean, he's broken various records, whether it be in the Premier League, whether it now be in the Bundesliga, also for England as well. But, he's England's record goal scorer with 76 goals. 15 of those have come in major tournaments. But there are still questions as whether or not he could have done better. I mean, I don't even know where they come from, but I wonder why those questions still exist.
Well, I think this is just a habit that exists around England centre forwards. If you look back, there's always been that conversation. It surrounded Wayne Rooney. It surrounded Michael Owen. There was a period before Euro 96, I'm aging myself here, when people wanted Alan Shearer dropped because he wasn't scoring regularly enough. Lineker got criticised a little bit. So it's one of those things that we do. And I think also because England have gone so long without winning a major tournament, you have a focus on the great hope of each era. And it's been Rooney, it's been Owen, it's been Beckham. For much of this generation, it's been Kane. And so when things don't go well, he's a target. And I would say, I don't necessarily think it's always undeserved, because I think if you look back at Euro 2024, I think one of the regrets England might have is that, Charlie mentioned this, Kane was never fit for that tournament. And actually, he wasn't fit at the end of Bayern's domestic season. He came off against Real Madrid, I think, in the second leg of a Champions League semi-final. And he just wasn't the same. And that's difficult because on the one hand, if you're Harry Kane, you're expected to play. You're going to be criticised if you're not there and you're not fit. On the other hand, if you are not fit and playing and not living up to your potential, also going to get criticised. I think this is just a hazard of the job, really. But I don't think I don't think England could have asked for a better centre forward during this era.
I do think, the key thing, like Seb mentions there, is that, if you're not winning things, then everything gets viewed through that prism. If you do win things, then, the fact that you're the leading goal scorer or whatever, then you become the absolute hero. But until you actually win something big, there are always going to be question marks, and you're always going to, because you're constantly understanding, well, how is it that this team isn't winning anything? And so you look for every possible explanation. And maybe one of those explanations is that, are we too reliant on this guy? Is he not enough of a team player? You kind of reach for any kind of explanation. So Kane becomes just another possible way of understanding how it is that this very good team that's got so close hasn't actually yet got over the line. And I guess added to that, the context that Kane was for so long pretty much like the best player to have never won anything. I mean, he really was that. That kind of added fuel to that particular fire.
Yeah, I mean, this is the one, isn't it, Seb? Are England too reliant on Harry Kane? Because we talk about, England not quite picking up a trophy under his tenure as captain. But, I mean, there are also another 10 players on that team as well, and a manager, let's face it.
Yeah, I think so. In the England conversation, I think it's a little bit outdated. So what we just said there about sort of focusing on individual players, I think that's a legacy of 20, 30 years ago where England didn't have the talent really to reach the kind of the final four, final rounds of a World Cup or a European Championship. Now I think if there are a couple of players in the sort of the England squad, and I don't think we need to go through the kind of the routine of naming them, but there are a couple of players who, when Harry Kane gets criticised, is quite convenient because there are quite a few players in that squad who have never really, I don't think, reached their potential internationally, who've never really replicated. It's kind of like a holdover conversation from the 1990s when we're talking about, you're so great for your club, but why can't you play and for England, and where's our left-sided midfielder, all that kind of stuff. But I do think there's some merit to it because Kane is such a big figure. He's such an accessible talking point. For so many people, even at tournament time, when you have people that aren't necessarily week to week football fans, they can say, "Oh, what's wrong with Harry Kane?" It's very easy to grasp that. But I think there are some shortcomings. There are some, structural issues in the team that have kind of transcended eras, and that the Kane conversation has been an easy distraction from. So, yeah, it's difficult. It's really difficult.
Yeah, we're going to talk about later whether or not Kane is underappreciated, Charlie. But I do wonder if a little part of, I guess, some of the criticisms around Harry Kane are to do with his demeanour. He seems pretty normal, dad-like figure. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not. I don't think that's offensive, but like, I just think he seems like a really nice guy.
Yeah, one of my favourite details about Harry Kane is, do you remember in like that 2021 lockdown season when, you weren't meant to be getting your hair cut and that sort of thing? And obviously all footballers still had these incredibly, close crops or whatever. Kane had lockdown hair. He was, he was like us. He was the only footballer. He's like the most elite footballer, but he was the only one who seemed to be
don't say lockdown hair to Seb. Sorry, mate. Don't.
Yeah, you know what? Like, I remain pretty close crop during lockdown, I'll have you know. So...
Well, you were just following the trend of all the
I was just cool. I was just a cool guy. Yeah.
But yeah, like things like that. Like he's a really interesting, like, he's the most superstar. And I think sometimes, I don't know, that helps him in some ways maybe, but I also think it does make him undervalued because like how you present yourself does really matter in this kind of context. I mean, he's such I don't know who runs his social media accounts, but they feel very authentic, which again feels very unusual. Kind of for better or worse, like because he's so sort of single-minded as well. I do think part of it is that there can be something hard to relate to Harry Kane, like because he's basically so unbelievably driven and professional, which I think most people can't really relate to. They can relate to more classically, like a Gaza or someone like that, someone who's flawed and has these demons and that sort of thing. That's a more kind of compelling story as well. Whereas Kane is just so driven and dedicated. And I don't think, he's not one for like gushy emotions. Like when Spurs played Bayern recently in a friendly, he tweeted and he said he led with good to get some, minutes in the legs and, nice to see some familiar faces or something. And I was like, lead with the other thing. Say how great it was to see Spurs fans and faces and how much just play the game a bit. But he obviously didn't think that and just said what he was feeling. But I don't know. I think that can feed into this perception of Kane as quite sort of cold and detached. And maybe in some respects that makes him feel like an easier target because there is this kind of invulnerability to him. This is a guy who missed the penalty in the World Cup against France. That's basically completely forgotten about. He was hardly like a Gareth Southgate figure. He was playing and scoring for Spurs in the Premier League 16 days later. He's so incredibly able to kind of compartmentalize and just crack on. Which, I think can sort of, make him feel sort of less human, which I don't think is right, but I can understand why then people are kind of like, oh, well, he won't mind being criticised. He's fine. He'll just get on with it.
I think there are moments when you see the humanity of it. And it's a little bit of a shame that kind of the normalness gets lost within all the kind of the translucent glare of like modern superstars. But I remember, and I've probably told this story on the podcast before, but I remember going to Bayern against Borussia Dortmund at the Westfalenstadion a couple of years ago when he scored a hat-trick. I was waiting in the mix zone and he didn't talk, but he came walking through and he had the match ball in a plastic bag, like not a Tesco's bag, but it's like Riva or Edeka or something like that. And he just walked past and I remember saying to him, oh, is that the match ball? And he was like, oh, yeah. And it was very interesting because it's like, there aren't airs and graces to him. There isn't like sometimes in our job you can brush up against superstar ego quite easily, and it's just a a function of the game and how famous a lot of the players have become. But he doesn't really have that. There isn't that sort of veneer, like you can kind of you can see the person there. And there's no controversy to him. There's no I think this is a virtue. Like I think what you see is pretty much what you get. He is a really guided person, and I don't think any of us know who he is you know, beyond kind of what we're presented with. But that still seems authentic, and that's saying something in this day and age, I think, in this era of the game.
Coming up this Sunday, don't miss a bonus exclusive episode of The Athletic FC, brought to you by our very own Jordan Campbell. He's joined by Galatasaray and former Manchester City player Ilkay Gundogan. Ilkay talks about life under Pep and also how he's staying on top of his game. Make sure you don't miss it this Sunday. Do you think winning a trophy has also helped shift perceptions? Because he's clearly efficient, clearly a goal scorer. Finally, the Bundesliga trophy. He's gone to a massive team, Seb. I mean, that must be brilliant for brand Kane.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the people who want to denigrate him will still do it. The people who want to question him will still do it. It tends to be a conversation also which is very Premier League centric, and where people don't really respect whatever you achieve in Germany because it's just assumed it's like a kind of it's a welcome gift, right? Join Bayern Munich, here's a Bundesliga trophy. Not really like that. I think that he's been part of what will become a really interesting Bayern revival. We'll be seen that way over the next couple of years. He'll be a fundamental piece within that, and he is inseparable from what Bayern have been able to do over the last couple of years. But that's not the way the game works. You don't, we know this, you don't get people on social media going, you know what, I was wrong about that, actually. It doesn't happen. It's not and it's also like, I think there's a sort of, you talk about brand, I think there's a kind of a social media brand in denigrating Kane. There's attention to be gained. There's retweets and likes to be farmed from that. And I don't think that will ever change. And also because, some of the things we've touched on, he's not a fashionable guy. He's not. Is he a cool guy? Like, I don't think like a couple of guys in their 40s should be sitting around arguing about what's cool or not. But my point is, like, does he have that kind of flash quality to him, which makes him attractive to kind of to younger people, to make him aspirational? I'd say probably not. And so he's kind of an easy target, right? And I don't think that changes just because he's won or will continue presumably to win a couple of trophies with Bayern.
Spurs don't have many kind of media cheerleaders in the way that if he played for some of the other biggest clubs, he might have that. And also, I just think because, he did, but as Seb says, it became such a stick to beat him with that whole, you're always near missing, you don't win stuff. And that kind of just lingers on because you can always be like, oh, well, winning the league with Bayern, does that even count kind of thing, all this sort of nonsense stuff. But yeah, I do think the kind of Spurs association did add to it because Spurs are quite an easy target themselves. And so combining that with Kane became the kind of poster boy for near misses, I guess. But it's such a credit to him that he's never really been that bothered by it, and that he has gone and he has won stuff. And I just don't think this stuff really bothers him. I really don't. Like, he's just so incredibly hyper-focused, and you see that in his performances.
Well, joining us now is former England goalkeeper Rob Green. Rob, appreciate you joining us. You were in the England squad for Harry Kane's first call-up in March 2015. What was he like at camp? And also, could you guess back then that he'd become the prolific goal scorer we see today?
Yeah, it's amazing to think it's a decade ago. I mean, the numbers he's racked up since then, isn't it? Is extraordinary. But in short, by then, yeah. Before that, I actually played against him around 3 years before that in a reserve team game at West Ham. I was coming back from fitness, and he was not near the first team. And there's a whole bunch of youngsters playing, and they were sort of the next up and coming stars for Spurs, and he looked like he was struggling then. He couldn't couldn't get shots away. He was struggling to get his feet right, and you're just thinking, well, this guy out of all of them, probably I didn't see it then, and then something clicked, and it was just his finishing clicked, and from there, all of a sudden, everything just flew. And when he came into the England camp, he was quite quiet and quite shy, which is understandable. I remember my first England camp, and Gareth Southgate took me under his wing when I first went in. So I kind of remembered that. I remember what a help it was for me. He said, "Just come and sit next to us on the bus." So I said that I did the same. I was 35 by then, so I was like one of the senior ones. Come sit here. We played stick cricket, the app on our
Yeah.
phones. We played that. Yeah, it was just trying to be a friendly face around the camp, and from that point on, no, really, he's sort of it's just been one sort of seamless progression for him, hasn't it?
What do you think that is? You talked about seeing him back then and you weren't quite sure whether or not that lad you saw would end up being a prolific goal scorer. But what is that with player development in general? Is that an individual thing? Is that just a phase in their life where perhaps they haven't quite developed to that point? Or is it just pure hard work that gets them to the level where he's now just undoubtedly an incredible goal scorer?
I think something in there clicks. I think when you're looking at young lads, you talk about the brain and how your body develops. You're saying you're not there till you're 24 as men, and so something clicked at a point. You look at all the loan spells he had, and all the time he sent out on loan. You never really saw a point where you're thinking, "Oh wow, he's a step above this. He's going to go on." In these loan spells, so I think between playing, because it was only 3 years between playing in this reserve team game and then being with the England squad, he something definitely clicked, and you put that down to his hard work, because he just repetition in just delivering the end result over and over again. You can see it, and you can see it when he plays, that he just gets saw it last night. When he gets to a certain point, you're going, well, this is a goal. He gets that shot away, he gets in a position where he's gonna shoot, and you think, "Well, this is it, this is a goal," and it was.
Well, let's talk about England, because some of the criticisms leveled at Harry Kane is that he slows England down and he drops too deep in midfield. But from a player's perspective, is that fair, or does it miss the point about just how good a player he is? Maybe we're thinking about him as a classic number 9. Maybe he offers England a bit more than that.
I think you could counteract that and say, "Well, what's he supposed to do?" And say, "Okay, Erling Haaland gets criticised for Manchester City for standing there and doing nothing." So you want him to stand up there. You look at this group, and which team just hasn't sat back and waited to be beaten by England? They've all done exactly the same, and no, last night was no exception. So you sit there and go, well, where do you want him? And you look at what he does for Bayern. So and say, well, when he does drop in, you've got Serge Gnabry and other players looking to run in behind when he creates that space. So he's a wonderful striker of the ball. He's a wonderful deliverer of a pass, and he's got vision. So use it. What he hasn't got is blistering pace in behind. He knows that. So why are we all asking him to make runs down the channels when you may as well ask me? So it's kind of you sit there and say, well, actually, what's his attributes? What's his skill sets? Use it, and he knows that, and he's using it. So you know what? If it brings a different dimension, yeah, brilliant. Because if he was making those runs in behind, he'd be slowing England down. Let Anthony Gordon do it. Let other players, Rashford do it, whoever it might be on the wing. Let them make those runs because they're quicker.
Seb, for Bayern, 103 goals and 106 appearances. I mean, that is insanely prolific. But are there any criticisms based on how deep he sits as well?
No, I think in the beginning there were. In his first season, there was criticism around whether he scored in big games or not. In German football, you do get some soft fixtures. You do get to play against Bochum or Darmstadt and fill your boots, do some stat padding. That's definitely true. But then the payoff for that is that, when it comes to playing by Leverkusen or Borussia Dortmund and you don't score, then the criticism can be particularly fierce. So in that first year, yes. I think where we are now, there's definitely been an evolution in his game, and Bayern fans have seen that the deeper Kane plays in many ways, because he's able to, as you mentioned, because he's able to kind of balance it with, a prolific return from a goal. He's able to allow the team to do interesting things, particularly with, at the moment, Jamal Musiala injured until probably January. The team is without a central base playmaker. And you're seeing Kane doing all kinds of things. You're seeing him pick up possession directly from his goalkeeper between the centre halves, which is, I mean, there are England fans whose heads would explode if they saw that happen on international duty, but it works. And you see also the effect on other players. You see his combinations with Michael Olise, who's developed into an outright star in German football since he moved from Crystal Palace. Serge Gnabry's career has been rejuvenated. He's been playing better than he has been in years, really. Kingsley Coman was doing the same before he left. Luis Diaz has hit the ground running. He's been a tremendous addition. And a lot of it can be traced back to what Kane's able to do. Like we mentioned right at the beginning of this podcast about sort of, we went back to Euro 96. Now, like, that's kind of back in the sort of fabled time of Shearer and Sheringham, right? Kane's kind of both. Kane's both of those players really in the same body. And I think as he's got older, and Rob made a really great point, like, what's the point in him being that kind of line-breaking player if he hasn't got the pace to do it and the players better suited to those roles? And that penny started to drop in Germany about 18 months ago, to the point where, like, while there's a recognition that he'll never quite represent what Robert Lewandowski did at Bayern because of the tonnage of what Lewandowski was able to win, I think there's an acceptance that Kane is a much broader player and a much better player.
From what we're talking about, we talk about the likes of Elise and Eto'o at Bayern, super fast wingers. He can bring them into the game. I'm thinking Saka, I'm thinking Rashford, I'm thinking Gordon, I'm thinking Madueke for England. Similarly, he sits in that kind of position where you've got these incredible quick wingers that he can bring into the play, and then he makes his way up the field. I mean, 95 goal involvement in 110 international matches. That is prolific.
Yeah, I mean, and that is it. I mean, it's the fact that he's been able to have this evolution without his productivity going down. If anything, it's got better. And I remember, having this exact conversation really about 5 years ago at Spurs, when he started to perform a different role, where he moved away from being that number 9, would drop in. And then you saw Son win the Golden Boot in 21-22, in large part because Kane was dropping deep and feeding him. But that's what's been so exceptional, because I remember when Kane started to do that, we were all kind of conditioning ourselves to accept the fact that, okay, this is what happens. You see this often with kind of, players who, we saw it a bit with Rooney in a different way, because he started a bit deeper, but he moved deeper and deeper and deeper and kind of stopped scoring goals. And I think we thought, well, Kane's going to drop deeper. We'll have to get used to him as a playmaker, which has happened, but while at the same time still scoring at the ludicrous rate he always has. I mean, it is just like, when you actually break it down, it's just extraordinary. And yeah, there's no reason why, like in the same way that the wide players at Bayern who benefit from that, or like Son did at Spurs, that we can't see that with these England players at the World Cup, who should be perfectly suited, as Rob said, because you've got guys like Gordon, Rashford, who can essentially do his running for him.
I likened it to, I was just thinking then, I was lucky enough to go and watch Brazil, Croatia at the last World Cup in Qatar. And I took my son and I was explaining to him, I said, watch how Croatia play. And it's all about where Modric is on the pitch and how can he get them up the pitch. And the whole team waited for Modric. They had the ball, but they were just waiting for Modric to get up the pitch. There weren't any Croatians complaining about Modric being a bit slower getting up the pitch. So hold on a minute, let's take it all in the element that it's levelled at, and if is needed to be accommodating for, then at times, then yeah, use it.
I wonder how much of a great option this is for Thomas Tuchel in terms of, the consistency he offers, Rob. But also when you have players like Palmer, Bellingham at the moment, or even no Foden in the team, he offers that sort of creative outlet and a goal-scoring prowess. It's almost like the complete forward play in many respects.
Yeah, and you're looking to say what a great option it is if you're saying to bring them on as well. You say, okay, Kane's dropped in, he's done that, or he doesn't. And you saw last night there was times where players were in and around him, and he was saying, "Well, I will stay as number 9. I will stay up there because I trust these guys with the ball." And you kind of see it a bit with Chelsea and Cole Palmer. João Pedro's done the same, where he's dropped in, and when Cole Palmer's been injured, and then Cole Palmer came back, and automatically João Pedro went, "Oh, I'll stay a centre forward. There's no point me going into those holes." So I think Harry's got the intelligence and also backed up with the ability to turn around and say, "Well, I can do it with the personnel that's around me or not around me." And so that's a brilliant attribute to have. And for Thomas Tuchel, over a long tournament with a lot of heat, with a lot of contributing factors next summer, finding the right tools for each game is going to be key. And with and changing the game within the elements of the whole context of a game, which is where we've suffered in the past in major tournaments, we haven't been able to change the game. That is something that's going to be a huge tool in his armory.
I want to flip it around a little bit and talk about what it's like to come up against him. I know in his breakout season, 2014-15, came when you were at QPR. Now, he scored twice against you in a 2-1 defeat at Loftus Road. From your perspective as a goalkeeper, how difficult is he to play against?
Well, I did actually rewatch that game when I saw it on the notes, and I saw he missed an open goal as
Oh,
well.
we
So
won't
I
talk
meant
about that bit. We just want to hear about him
yeah,
scoring against you.
yeah, yeah. I mentioned that I mentioned to him during the game that he should have had a hat trick, but it's like I touched on before. You say there's moments you're worrying about as a goalkeeper, your own technique, your own ability, your own right. I've got to get into this position at this time, get my feet right, get my dive right. Add to the fact that he gets in a certain area, a certain position, you've not really got a chance. I liken it to kind of almost a small picture of playing against him is when he gets a penalty. He's that good at penalties. Looked at his ability to where he goes, his patterns, his foot movement, stuff like that, and you say, well, if you look for a lot of players, you say, okay, well, if he moves his feet this direction, or if he takes this sort of a run up, you'll go to your left or to your right. And in the end, we looked at Harry Kane's and we went, if he goes to my right, I've actually got no
Yeah.
chance in saving it. So I may as well just dive to my left.
That's so interesting you say that,
So
Rob.
I
I've always had that theory for goalkeepers that there's basically no point diving to their right because if he goes that way, you can't save it anyway. So you may as well try your left.
It's gone. It's
Yeah.
gone. And you can go and he can bury it that hard past you. Add to the fact that he's now brought in the stutter as well, which you go early and you kind of you're dead anyway. So it's that is just a microcosm because you stand there and you go, okay, he is the best I've seen at in certain areas on an angle, within the V of the pitch, really coming out from the goal. If he's in that area, he's the best I've seen at just finding the corner consistently.
When he brought in the stutter, as a goalkeeper, I mean, we all talk about this in the media and the kind of the dynamic of facing that. What is it actually like to face a player when he stutters just before the ball? What are you looking at when that's happening? Because presumably, like when a player has a kind of an orthodox technique when they just run up to the ball and hit it, you're looking for the little tells and the sort of the way they address the ball. When they add the stutter and they're waiting for you to move, how do you cope with that?
That is possibly the hardest, the worst. And you're watching them watch you, and but then you're watching for them to look at the ball. And if they don't look at the ball, then you got to get your timing so right that it is almost too late, but just almost. And so I trained with Jorginho for a year, who did that the hop, and yeah, and the only advantage that gave you is you knew when he had to kick the ball. He was waiting and waiting and waiting, but you knew. What I would say with the stutter is if you do wait long enough for a player to garnish enough power, they kind of have to whip it to your right if they're right-footed. And so with that stutter, if they do stutter and you do manage to wait long enough, then generally they go to the right because they're thinking, I'm going to have to go with power because I'm not sure. I don't know the answer.
It's like a game within a game. Like, there's not really a comparison, not really a comparable anywhere else in football than that situation. So it's interesting to me.
No, and it's as a goalkeeper, you're the what you do have is on your side is things like free kicks. You know when they're going to strike the ball, so you're actually if the game's an open play, it's got a shorter backlift, something something that might catch you out with a penalty. All of a sudden, these guys are introducing this that Harry Kane does it brilliantly. because he can batter it as well. I think it was David Raya who did it against First of All, and you stood there anyway, and everyone went, "Oh wow!" The whole stadium, I was there. The whole stadium just went silent because they might actually save this against a ex-Spurs player. And
No.
he was on a whole
Yeah,
different
not so
level
much.
than everybody else. Yeah.
All right, well, Rob, before you go, I've got a little quiz for you, actually for all of you. This is England cap related, and please, by all means, all of you jump in. So the question is, Harry Kane is the third for England caps as captain in men's senior internationals. 85 of his 110 caps have been as a captain. But who are the other 4 in that top 5? So I need 4 more names of the most capped England captains.
Bobby Moore.
Billy Wright.
You've got the easy one first.
Yes.
Yeah. I've got to go goalkeepers. I've got to go Peter Shilton. He's got to be in there, hasn't he?
No.
Shearer.
Oh.
No. 2 more names. One surprised me, actually.
Beckham.
Yes, that's the one that surprised me. Yes. So we're missing one more here. One more.
Can you give it? Okay.
What sort of era?
Oh, I can't give you that. I can't give you that. It's so obvious.
Okay.
I want to say Brian Robson, but I fear he was injured too often.
You're right. It is Brian Robson. Yes. Come on. So,
that shows how you get poisoned against a player just by reputation. I was always injured. It was like, no.
yeah,
it's
it's true.
Okay.
No goalkeepers. Sorry, Rob. I apologise. You were trying to get the easy
surprises me
one
a
there.
little bit.
I was. That's your mind goes blank, and all you can refer to is your own. So, Peter Shilton, clearly, as we say, didn't get enough caps. Yeah.
Exactly that. All right, let's leave it there, gent. Rob, thanks so much for your time. And also you guys, thanks as well, Seb and Charlie. Remember, if you're enjoying today's show, make sure you like the video and also leave us a comment as well. That's it from us. We're back soon. For more from the Athletic FC podcast, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. We've got top journalists like David Ornstein, Matt Slater, Adam Crafton, Carl Anker, and plenty more through the entire season. Make sure you don't miss an episode of the Athletic FC. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts from.